The rich don't build passive income like you think they do. They use a two-engine system. One engine generates yield from assets you own. The other accelerates your ability to buy more assets. When you combine them right, you stop needing your salary in 3 to 5 years. It's not luck, and it's not inheritance. It's how HNW investors have been building this since before 2020. Most high-earning professionals face a structural trap. You make $150,000 a year or more, but after taxes, you're paying 37 to 40% of that income to the federal government. That leaves you with roughly $90,000 to live on and invest. The problem isn't your income. The problem is that you treat income and assets as separate buckets when they should work together. Here's what most people believe. Passive income comes from rental properties and stock dividends. You buy a house, rent it out, collect checks. You buy stocks, collect dividends. Simple. But that's incomplete. High net worth investors don't optimize for cash flow from a single source. They build an entire architecture where different parts work together and feed each other. The difference between their approach and yours isn't which investments you pick. It's the capital structure. Part 1. The Asset Allocation Engine. Start here. Before you pick any specific investment, you need to understand capital structure decisions. Think of it like building a house. You decide the foundation first. You don't pick paint color and then discover you need to reinforce the walls. For HNW income replacement, the foundation rule is simple. Separate your assets into two categories. Income replacement assets must generate 8 to 11% reliable yield, while growth assets compound for 5 to 10 years and then become income. This separation matters because it changes what you buy and how you buy it. In 2026, the tested allocation for HNW investors looks like this. 40 to 50% goes to private equity, real estate and syndications. These generate 8 to 10% yields and they're tax sheltered through depreciation. 25 to 35% goes to private credit instruments, senior secured direct lending, NAV facilities, and special situations funds. These yield 8 to 11% in current cash. 15 to 20% stays in public equities for long-term holdings. These provide diversification and liquidity. But notice something. The real estate comes first because it solves a specific problem that the others don't. Why this order? Real estate provides depreciation shelter. Private debt provides immediate cash distributions. Public equities provide optionality. Each part of the architecture does something the others can't. The math looks like this. $1 million invested in this structure generates $80,000 to $100,000 per year. Because of depreciation on the real estate side and K1 treatment of distributions, your current taxes on that income are near zero. Think about that. You receive 80 to 100 grand in cash every year, but the tax bill stays close to zero. That's not luck. That's structural. Now you understand the endpoint. This is what 5 to 10 years of discipline builds toward. For your current situation, you don't need $1 million yet. You need to understand the architecture so you can build toward it. That's exactly what Part 2 reveals. Part 2. Equity yield from non-traded assets. Equity yield is the percentage return you receive from ownership of non-public assets. It's calculated from cash distributions plus the embedded tax efficiency of how those assets are structured. Most people have never heard this term before. Here's where it gets important. Take real estate. A property purchased for $500,000, using cost segregation and bonus depreciation under current law, can generate $150,000 to $200,000 in depreciation deductions in year 1. These deductions shelter your W-2 income from current tax. Meanwhile, that same property is paying you $40,000 to $50,000 in actual cash each year. The net result seems impossible when you first see it. You receive $40,000 in cash, but you pay tax on zero. That's the mechanism at work. Depreciation eliminates your taxable income for that investment. For private equity real estate syndications, the structure is similar but managed by professionals. You invest as a limited partner and the fund handles operations. Distributions typically run 5 to 8% in cash, plus another 3 to 5% from depreciation shelter due to K1 treatment, giving you a total equity yield of 8 to 13% with lower tax friction than direct ownership. The core advantage: non-public assets let you separate cash distributions from taxable income. Public equities don't. You pay tax on dividends when you receive them. Non-traded assets use cost basis, depreciation, and K1 structures to defer or eliminate current tax entirely. Case studies show real estate professional status combined with cost segregation saving over $285,000 in taxes for high-earning couples. Another shows private equity real estate generating $90,000 to $100,000 in income with $0 to $10,000 in taxes from $1 million invested. These aren't theoretical numbers, they're documented cases. The tax code is actually built to favor asset owners, not employees. Part 3. Private debt as the acceleration engine. Here's the question that stops most people cold. Equity yield works beautifully, but only if you have assets to begin with. You're making $150 a year as a W-2 employee. You can't purchase the syndications and real estate needed to generate meaningful yield. Not yet, anyway. This is where the second engine enters the system. Private debt is the acceleration engine. This is how you get from where you are now to where the system generates income. The private debt market in 2026 is larger and more accessible than ever. Senior secured direct lending yields 8 to 10%, paid quarterly. NAV-backed facilities to private equity funds target 10 to 15% IRR. Evergreen semi-liquid funds blend yield with optionality. The total addressable market is $1.3 trillion and growing 20% annually. This isn't niche anymore. It's mainstream. Here's how it works in your playbook. Step 1. Take a portion of your W-2 salary, even $50,000 to $100,000 per year, and allocate it to private credit. Step 2. This generates 8 to 11% yield directly. It's not tax-sheltered like real estate, but it still yields more than public bonds. Step 3. Reinvest those distributions into the equity yield assets, the real estate syndications. Step 4. After 3 to 5 years, distributions from your equity assets are sufficient to cover your living expenses. This creates a cascade effect. Private debt accelerates your journey to the point where equity yield replaces your salary. Why does this beat index funds? Index funds yield 1 to 2%. Private debt yields 8 to 11%. Compounded over 5 years, this difference is $300,000 on a $500,000 base. The difference is stark. But there's one critical dependency. This only works if you reinvest the distributions for 3 to 5 years. The temptation is to spend the cash. If you do that, the system doesn't accelerate. This is where execution discipline becomes the real challenge. Connection. How the system compounds. Let's run the architecture in action. Year 0. Your W-2 income is $150,000. Your starting capital is $100,000. Years 1 through 3. You allocate $50,000 per year to private credit. You receive $4,000 to $5,000 per year in distributions and reinvest them into equity real estate. By year 3, your total equity assets are now $200,000, generating $16,000 to $20,000 per year. Years 4 and 5 accelerate. Distributions grow. Reinvestment continues. Your equity base grows to $400,000 or more. By year 5 and beyond, equity yield from assets generates $32,000 to $44,000 annually. Private debt distributions generate $8,000 to $11,000. Your total systematic cash flow is $40,000 to $55,000 per year, with minimal tax. The key mechanism is simple. Each engine feeds the other. Private debt yields cash to fuel equity asset purchases, while equity yields provide lifestyle cash and principal compounds simultaneously. Tax efficiency on equities reduces drag and accelerates reinvestment power. This combination hits critical velocity around year 3 to 5, when real estate alone takes 5 to 7 years and index funds stay stuck at 1 to 2% indefinitely. The combination lets tax-sheltered cash flow noticeably exceed your living expenses. The only true dependency is starting capital and reinvestment discipline for 3 to 5 years. The starting capital can be modest. $50,000 to $100,000 is sufficient. The discipline part is where most people fail. You'll see your distributions arrive and feel the pull to spend them, but the architecture only works if you resist that pull for the committed time frame. Your first-year playbook. Start with Action 1. In months 1 and 2, audit your current position. Calculate your W-2 income, your tax bracket, and your disposable annual capital. Target somewhere between $30,000 and $100,000 per year. Identify which asset category should come first: real estate or private credit. This depends on your capital available and your tax situation. Action 2 happens in months 2 through 4. If your available capital is less than $100,000, start with semi-liquid private credit funds. Lower minimums. 8 to 10% yields. Quarterly distributions. If your capital exceeds $100,000, consider a private equity real estate syndication. Accreditation required, but depreciation benefits unlock more tax efficiency. Action 3 starts in month 4 and beyond. Commit to reinvesting all distributions back into the architecture for 3 to 5 years minimum. This is where the compounding magic happens. Write this down. Make it a rule. When the distribution hits, it goes back in. Your first year isn't about dramatic cash flow. It's about starting the capital velocity machine. That machine pays off in year 3 through 5. Salary-free cash flow isn't about working less. It's about building an asset architecture that works while you do. You don't stop your job. You build a system that eventually makes it optional. The choice becomes: work because you want to, not because you have to. That distinction changes everything. So start with one decision today. Which engine aligns better with your starting capital? Which would you build first?